In recess, taking the 5th grade, Gus says, "I can actually be second in line to slide down Old Rusty," a remark meant to say that, having been promoted 1 grade, he's achieved a higher placement in the playground hierarchy. I found this declaration difficult to interpret, so I'll lay out some possibilities here. 1. The kids in the playground observe a strict line order where the first 6th grader is always first in line, the first 5th grader is always second in line, etc. However, there are some obvious problems with this theory. First off, this would imply that the second 6th grader would potentially have to wait behind a kindergartner. And that sort of partially impartial policy doesn't really mesh with our best understanding of playground society and politics. Additionally, and perhaps more fundamentally, under this policy, Gus would have had the potential to be first in line his entire 4th grade year at 3rd Street. So I pretty confidently reject this theory. Unless there's other line ordering ideas I haven't considered, let me know. Possibility 2. There's a kid who is known around the playground as the #1 slide dude or dudette. This kid, the notorious super fast to Old Rusty, has been winning the race to the top of the slide on some kind of Joe DiMaggio-esque streak. This is pretty suspect, however. How has this kid never been seen before? Is his singular purpose so well known that it infiltrated the parlance of the playground, but we never see or hear about this character before or after? In the words of Anakin, I don't think so. Possibility 3. If you've watched some Recess, you'll know that King Bob, he was the king before Freddy was the king in this series of episodes put together as a movie, because, Bob graduated to middle school. King Bob, or junior high, I suppose. King Bob oversaw the playground on a chair right at the top of the slide of Old Rusty. So perhaps this location isn't just for logistical reasons. The logistical reason would be access to the slide would be the quickest descent from Old Rusty. Alternatively, maybe the symbolic placement of the king, first in line at the top of the slide, as a traditional and visible reinforcement of the royal ideal. Everyone knows and can see that the king is always first in line, so conversationally, perhaps second has replaced first. Note that this is similar to the idea I rejected in point 2, but I think the crucial difference here is that if it was just one kid who was always first in line to Old Rusty, that's a max of a couple of years of that happening, whereas if the king, the role of the king is always there, then that has sort of a tradition that can sustain itself over time and perhaps is more likely to make it into the conversation or the way people talk about lines for Old Rusty. So I think that's a little more plausible. Possibility 4, this is not a happy thought, but I think it might be pretty likely. So Gus has a reputation as sort of a meek loser. So it's possible that he's just internalized his own reputation so much that he's not even capable of imagining being first in line. And honestly, I think that's the most likely or consistent theory. Okay, now some other issues that I thought of after coming up with these possibilities. One sort of larger issue that maybe supersedes all this. What does it mean, even literally, to be second in line for Old Rusty? Like, the second kid to get to the slide probably won't have to wait in line at all unless the first person is held up. Maybe I remember Recess wrong, but I think it's pretty much a free-for-all once you're at the classroom door. I don't remember someone restricting access to the playground slide after recess has started. So here's a thought. Maybe the 6th graders prevent people from boarding Old Rusty or sliding until the king has taken the symbolic first slide. In this case, maybe Gus wasn't just talking about the second turn on the slide in general, but the specific second turn of the year after the traditional royal slide, perhaps a part of some yearly kickoff festivities on the playground. In that case, as part of a long-standing ceremony, a line behind the king is much more believable. I would love to hear if you have a more sound interpretation. Nothing I've come up with really would stand that reasonable doubt test that I try and interpret all of my Saturday morning cartoon dialogue with.